Hello, everyone, and welcome to Musing, music for adventurous listeners here on CJSW 90.9 FM in Calgary. I'm your host, Janna Sailor. On today's program, I'm in conversation with Polish-Canadian composer, researcher, writer, and multimedia performer Piotr Grella-Możejko, described by the German press as demonstrating uncompromising honesty and praised for his unorthodox aesthetics, and whose work has been called brawny, high contrast, full of rich counterpoint and compelling textural changes, strikingly original, and nothing less than a clear expression of musical and artistic genius. Grella-Możejko's works have garnered him international recognition and performances in over 30 countries around the world. As a writer, Grella-Możejko has published in major scholarly and popular periodicals in Canada, Europe, and the UK, including the Canadian Slavonic Papers, Contemporary Music Review, Music Works, and the Alberta New Music and Arts Review, just to mention a few. Piotr Grella-Możejko is my guest in conversation on today's episode of Musing. So let's dive in. So welcome, Piotr. Thank you so much for being my guest on Musing today. I'm really looking forward to our conversation.
Thank you very much. I was looking forward to that interview. I love your podcast. It's very well done. And it's always a pleasure to be part of something that is well done.
Oh, thank you so much, Piotr. We really appreciate that. On behalf of the hardworking CMC staff behind the scenes, we really appreciate that. I'm going to start with a question that I ask a lot of my composers and artists, and that is, how do you describe yourself as a composer, as a creative, and ultimately your compositional output?
It's a dangerous question, and I will answer it in a roundabout way. There was a wonderful artist, Dadaist. His sculptures and his paintings, his poetry are amazing. If you have a chance, perhaps you may want to listen to his poetic musical masterpiece, Sonate. There is a recording copied from the original shellac recording of Schwitters performing this four-movement sonata piece. It's amazing. I spent most of my life working extremely hard on music, on visual arts and writing. And I am fully aware of my worth and worth of my artistic output. My music is intended to be innovative, to search new ways of expression, of technique, but also I want my music to work through its own organically proven means and techniques. Friend paid me a visit and I played for him a MIDI version of my recent piece for string orchestra, Totentanz, which will be performed in September of this year by the Chamber Orchestra of Edmonton. And he said, "Wow, that sounds weird." And this is what music should be about. New music should sound weird. It should sound different, unpredictable. There was a Russian linguist, Viktor Klovsky. He was active around the time of First World War and after. He formulated a theory of astranение, estrangement. And he said that every work of art which shows timeless quality is weird, is different than the majority of works, contemporary works that surround it. Indeed, if you listen to Beethoven's music and the music of his contemporaries, you see how different and innovative his works are. The same goes for many works of Bach, Mozart, Haydn. One of my favorite composers was Bieber, a great Baroque innovator who was probably the first who wrote tonal music. There is a piece where there are 8 different melodies in 8 different keys. You will find a lot of fascinating examples of artistic innovation, and most of it sounds different.
I was going to say, as far as your own work, to me, it's very multidimensional and experimental in nature. You know, you incorporate electronics into a lot of your music, or in the instance of Totentanz, it has kind of a very programmatic aspect to it. Where does this curiosity come from, and how do you nurture it?
I nurture it because I'm a human being. And one of the attributes of a normal human being is curiosity, creative curiosity. And the development of language is a creative process. If you compare Beowulf to Shakespeare and to Wordsworth and then to Aldous Huxley, how English language developed. And nobody complained that it developed in this way. It's the most widely spoken language on earth. By the same token, other phenomena develop thanks to our curiosity, seeking better ways, easier ways to exist. What is fascinating about human beings that we can progress due to our curiosity, but we do not progress in the same direction because we are all different, and someone will invent this, another one will invent that. We develop different cultural modes, but one phenomenon remains unchanged. There are some of us who want to know more, who want to explore more.
I really love this, what you brought up about the development of language and comparing it to the development of music. And if the English language had stopped with the development of Chaucer, we wouldn't have all our fun words that we get to use today. But when you talk about your varied experiences, which have come from formalized education, but also life experience, as a Polish Canadian composer, how does that influence your own personal musical language?
It makes it richer because the more you know, the more discriminating you become, and yet more open to a variety of influences. And I have always aimed at developing a musical language which wouldn't fossilize. If you try to develop your own style, it means sooner or later you will run into this issue of fossilization. All your pieces will sound the same. Therefore, I do not compose music in a single style. There are certain periods in my development where I explore certain solutions, and then I go on from that to explore something else. And my music proves what I just said, because these are expressively, stylistically, technically, timbrally, very different works. And this is what interests me, to capture the richness of my inner self. Because if I read, let's say, 10 novels a month, I also want to explore the knowledge, the experience I gathered during that month, and enrich my music by something that helps me to find new ideas, new solutions, inspired by the imagination of the other authors. I want to create something that will last beyond its practical sensory representation.
I love that. Music is such a powerful medium. Keeping with preserving and ensuring that music gets out there and lives on beyond us, you have your very own record label that champions new music, specifically Canadian music. And tell me a bit about that and your projects and how that came about.
I always wanted to work with people whose music I value as very well conceived and very well realized. And a very big factor in my programming to have quality music by women composers, because I see a lot of quality, a lot of worth in that music. And this is why you have that CD, Oboe Electronics, recorded by Ola Panasik, the phenomenal Polish oboist who plays a lot of Canadian music. And on her CD, you have 6 pieces by women composers, 1 piece of mine. And then you have one of my favorite CDs of all the time, Zuzana Shimurdova's Vertical Landscapes, which is all Canadian women. I think that her CD, and she made the choices, is probably among the very best in that category. It's a phenomenal CD. It offers an incredible array of compositional approaches from fairly traditional vocabulary to very advanced one, including elements of piano preparations, elements of timbral music. And you have composers from the majority of our country's provinces. Zuzana's playing is phenomenal. The program is phenomenal. I'm very proud of the production level. It's a very elegant CD.
Yeah, really beautifully done on all accounts. Wonderful playing, wonderful compositions and production, and visually stunning always helps.
And so I worked with Ola Panasik, I work with Zuzana Shimurdova. Recently, we started recording a CD of works for solo bassoon, just acoustic bassoon, no electronics, with one of my students from the Detroit area, very talented composer and bassoonist, Maria Lord Knifton, and she's recording a CD which will also have a significant Canadian content. Let me mention also phenomenal, fantastic person and artist, Tatiana Warszynski, in Edmonton, who've been violinist with Edmonton Symphony Orchestra, but also very active as a solo and chamber musician. And her playing so unique, charged emotionally. And I was very, very lucky to convince her to record a CD of Canadian and Polish music, for which we received a very generous grant from the Alberta Foundation for the Arts. These projects are quite varied. I like to work with electronic music too, which is the cheapest solution. Don't have to do anything, just put the pieces together, make the final master tape, and that's it. Of course, I will continue in the same vein. What really surprises me that whenever I put the word out about working on the new CD, I get a lot of responses from abroad.
Some of your commissions and projects, in particular Totentanz, that's a special commission from the Edmonton Chamber Orchestra, and as well as some more multimedia projects that you have on the go. Can you tell us a bit more detail about these larger scale works?
I cannot stop composing music. I write music all the time because I'm a composer. I'm inspired by whatever factor you can name it, God or some external force or internal impatience, eagerness to create music. So I write music all the time. Totentanz was not written on commission. It was written as an act expressing my anger at the now infamous conversation between President Zelensky, the Ukrainian president, surrounded by US politicians, including their current governor, Trump. I was so angry by the cynicism, by the enmity, by the lack of understanding demonstrated by these very old boys who have never grown up to the world, because for whatever reason it was shown around the world. I think the topic was very sensitive and it would have been best served by absence of the media. But be it as it may, it was an example of how things should not be done in self-conscious, civilized politics. It was done contrary to any civilized rules of politicking. And it was so much more painful that we saw a group of people who maintain that their work is in the name of preserving democracy, preserving peace. And of course, it's a very cynical lie. And in the middle of it, this tormented person who's absolutely guiltless, who's a hero, who represented his country beautifully and efficiently for the past several years, especially during that war. It was embarrassing. So I decided to express that anger in a piece, Totentanz. So that was not a commission, and I dedicated it to a violinist who's with the Edmonton Symphony Orchestra and the Chamber Orchestra of Edmonton, Anna Kozak. She's a Ukrainian-Canadian. Anna is so patriotic, so absolutely devoted to her two nations, Ukraine and Canada. So she was the ideal person to dedicate that piece. And I didn't send it to the conductor. I wasn't even aware that Anna actually talked to Lydia Kainer, the artistic director of that orchestra, and they decided to program it. I think it's a very powerful work, and I treat these pieces, such as Totentanz, as manifestations of my attitude. It is a manifestation of my personal anger. It's a result of this anger, and this is, to a degree, a very angry piece. So there is no program. The piece just symbolizes, allegorizes my feelings at that very moment in time. Of course, in the future, it will or it will not function on its own. But the truth is, it was a gesture, not programmatic project, but a gesture of an angry, disillusioned composer. The second project you mentioned, the project tentatively called Borderlands, that is indeed, was indeed a big piece, almost 49 minutes in 4 movements. I described it in my application to the Alberta Foundation for the Arts as yet another electroacoustic symphony, because I've created several such works, always with video and dancers and lights. So these are your typical multimedia works, and borderlines signifies these borders, these divisions, sometimes very unclear divisions between these corresponding arts, the art of sound, the art of image, video, film, the art of moving image, motion, that is dancers or dancer. So that basic idea to create what Wagner called the total work of art, combining all these arts. His dramas were intended as such, that the importance of word, of image, of music, of movement was immense to him in this particular area of synthetic, syncretic art. And of course, I'm not inventing anything new. It's all been done. What is new, I think, is the soundtrack, which is for extensive movement, which truly I don't know if there is anything that sounds like it. I hear it quite often from very advanced and knowledgeable electroacoustic composers that they've never heard anything like that. And I've heard a lot of good comments, especially in relation to my previous electroacoustic, or I call them symphonie, plural, symphonie électrovisuelle.
That sounds magical.
I did one years ago, which was called Tartaros, the lowest level of Greek hell, from which there is no escape. I dedicated it to the victims of war in Afghanistan, the civilians who were murdered by basically mainly the US troops. And then I created another symphonie electrovisuelle called Darg. Darg is a rare English word that means an amount of work done during a single day.
Ah, a dark day.
Yes, a darg of hay. That's a hay that you collected within one day. So basically, these 4 works each were created during single days from start to finish. Then, of course, it took me a while to remix it, master it, put it all together. Usually to create such a work takes me between a year and 8 years. And that particular work is very important to me because each movement is devoted to the memory of a woman or a girl burnt at the stake in Germany or Austria during the 17th century witch hunts.
It's incredible that music can transform these very dark stories, and music has the capacity to hold these emotions and these stories that date back and this history. It's truly incredible. And I love that you're telling these stories in your musical language. I think that's really, truly extraordinary. What do you hope people take away from the experience of your music, whether they're experiencing it live or on their devices or listening through their stereos? What do you hope that they experience and take away?
The reaction, which ends with a moment of uncertainty, whether it's not too early to clap. I want people to be positively taken aback by what I give them. I think that playing from time to time something controversial would do a lot of good, because people understand that there is something new, something worthy. They may not like it, but after several attempts, more and more music like that. A lot of listeners hated Beethoven's music during his heyday. And, it was Carl Maria von Weber who said, oh, we just listen to yet another monstrosity by that drunkard. This is what Carl Maria von Weber had to say about Beethoven.
Yeah, can you imagine?
Yes, his symphonies, the more difficult fragments were cut off, were replaced by music composed and added by the conductors or local composers to just make it more accessible.
Yes, that's one of my favorite things to remind people of, that all of this music that we regard now as classical music from classical romantic era was actually new music at the time. And I think it's fascinating to think about. I think we have to leave it there for now, but thank you so much for all your thoughts and insights. Thank you so much, Piotr, for being my guest today on Musing, and all the best with the wonderful projects you have ahead.
Thank you very much. It was indeed a pleasure to be here with you and the listeners. I'm very grateful that you've given me an opportunity to talk about these projects.
Wonderful. Thanks again.
This has been Musing on CJSW 90.9 FM in Calgary. I'm your host, Janna Sailor. Thanks so much for joining me for this celebration of music, creators, and ideas. Musing is a production of the Canadian Music Centre Prairie Region and is heard right here in Calgary and around the world via the magic of the internet that connects us. As we end our time together, we recognize that there are more than 630 First Nations communities across the lands that we now know of as Canada, representing 50 distinct nations and Indigenous languages. In addition, there are Métis in every province of the country and 53 Inuit communities speaking different dialects of Inuktitut across the north. We acknowledge them as the original music makers, dancers, creators, and caretakers of our lands, and they continue to inspire and teach us as we commit to learning and moving forward together. I'll leave you now with more of the unique sound world of Piotr Grella-Możejko. Until next time, thanks for listening and for supporting Canadian music and musicians in your community. Take care.